will introduce the guest speaker for this morning. He is Guillaume Lemenaire, and he is the SVP of GM Enterprise Solutions at Mavenir, and Mavenir is our overall sponsor, so we're very happy to have him, and I'll hand over to him now. So, Guillaume, over to you.
Thank you, team, and good morning, guys. Good morning, everyone. Tim was asking me, when was the last time I had a face-to-face or in-person conference like this, and I can't remember. I have no idea the last time I was sitting or standing in front of people and presenting, so I'm very glad to be here. I think we are in the safest building in London, I guess, I feel a lot of doctors around us, so that's good, and the doors are open, so it's all good. Very glad to be here, very glad to be invited and sponsoring the event, for the next 2 days. The agenda is packed, a lot of good stuff. Before we get started, or I get started on my presentations, I'd like to get a video running, two welcoming gentlemen, our CEO, Pardeep, and our president, Jorgen. So let's go and run the videos. Do I need to
Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. Welcome to London, hope you're enjoying. I'm Pardeep Kohli, President and CEO of Mavenir. I would like to welcome you to MEF Connect's Omnichannel. We are actually proud to host this event and sponsor this event. I definitely believe that the future will focus on omnichannel customer engagement. Consumers are used to using many ways to interact with businesses. Somebody has, an Android phone, somebody has an Apple phone, and they use WhatsApp and SMS and RCS. And as a messaging company and one of the leading players in the market, we have seen consumers in different parts of the world using a different tool to engage with the enterprise. And there's definitely a play to have an omni-channel customer engagement which matches the enterprise with the needs of the consumer as they see on how to interact with their enterprise. So as part of that, Mavenir has created a separate business unit. We call it Enterprise Connect Business Unit. And we have hired Mr. Jorgen Nelson to head this unit. I would like to introduce Jorgen, who is the president of this new business unit. And hope you guys enjoy this, all the interesting sessions and engage with the Mavenir team. So Jorgen, they're all yours.
Thank you, Pardeep. It's great to be here, and of course I'm really excited to be part of this ecosystem and to lead Mavenir's new Enterprise Connect business unit. Our mission is to enable service providers and partners in their effort to make omnichannel messaging the cornerstone of customer engagement. I am sure you will enjoy everything that MEF has prepared for you with the help of the sponsors, analysts, and collaborators. I now leave you in good hands with Guillaume Lemenaire from my team to get all the interesting discussions started. Thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to meet you all in future events. Thank you.
So these are not the avatars, these are the real person, they are not living in the multiverse yet, or metaverse. They are the real guys. Let's get into the dynamic here of why we are here and what we see at Mavenir. And probably a little bit of Mavenir, but we've been instrumental in the messaging, in the carrier messaging space, for more than 25 years, I think. I didn't check the exact dates, but we've been in carrier messaging for a long time. And then we are enabling and supporting our main customers, the carriers, the telco carriers, into their transition, into their own, transformation when it comes to messaging. And these transitions, are happening at different places. One is in the business area, and I'm not going to repeat, what you already know. But if you look around, and especially with COVID and what we've seen over the last, 2 years and a half of pandemic, or 2 years almost now, the adoption of messaging, the adoption by businesses of new ways to interact, new way to connect, new way to engage, has made a tremendous, change for the businesses themselves. Now, they used to work and use what we call SMS, the universal messaging capabilities. Today is about Omnichannel conference, but we still have, a lot to see and a lot to say about A2P SMS. We'll come back on that. But there is clearly, a transformation in the way enterprise and businesses adopt, these channels. We've seen also transformation not just on the messaging side. We also, as Mavenir, provide voice on your phones. And the transition from voice to messaging is something very also important. So a lot of businesses are trying to find a better way to engage with their customers. Now, on the consumer side, the flip side of the coin, consumer, they love messaging. They just love it. It's convenient, it's easy. You can do it when you want, where you want. It's pretty, transformative experience. And I think we are just at the beginning. We are focusing a lot on business messaging. But if you think about the evolution of messaging with 5G, for example, and we play a critical role in the 5G transformation of messaging, this is about bringing more experience. This is not just messaging, but it's bringing more into the consumer life. So if we adopt, the preference of the consumer as an industry, we can really support them in their transformations. Last but not least, it's why we are here: customer engagement, omni-channels, penetration of, the way we interact with the customers. This is a growing market. You just saw some announcement 2 weeks ago in Sweden. You just saw more announcement around the world and consolidation in that space. This is always a good sign, when you see acquisitions and consolidations, and it means the market is alive. Something is happening, okay? And it's a long way. I will share some of our thought around that. It's a long way to go, but it's definitively something, we are seeing and supporting our customers in that transition. So at the end of the day, why are we doing all that stuff? Why are we here? And why are we, caring about messaging, omni-channels, and all that stuff? Well, it's about effective communications. A lot of communication can be very ineffective. Just go on social media and you're going to see a lot of ineffective communications. But at the end of the day, for the businesses, it's really about, being able to close a loop with that customer. So number one, we believe, effective conversation has to be able to satisfy the intent of that customer or consumer or person or prospect, whoever that person is. That person is engaging because they have an intent. And how do we make sure we satisfy the intent when they come to these channels? Personalization and being able to integrate, with the back office to be able to, provide information in the context of what we know about that customer or consumer is super important. Carriers can play a role, despite, regulation, privacy, sovereignty, all that kind of stuff. There is still a way to provide relevant information in that context. The end of the day, it's about trust. There is a lot of question about, the role of the carriers versus the role of the social media players, the big American companies, if I exclude China for a moment. How do we get and earn the trust of the customers when they interact and start to share more and more personal information, okay? The intent can be very personal. And it's not just, about an appointment reminder. That appointment reminder can be extrapolated into many ways. They trust us. It's something I'm always surprised, we carry, as Mavenir, we provide as part of our business messaging, we carry and we provide, voicemail. You have no idea how many sensible, how many private voicemails are. It's probably even more private or more private than any of the messages we see around. So earning the trust and being able, to be and hone that conversation, whatever it's a message or a voicemail, is super important. And then at the end of the day, for the businesses, it's always about increasing their productivity, being more efficient in the way they do that. We're going to have a nice conversation with Dario later, I think tomorrow. How do we make that also available, not just to the big corporation, to the big brands, but how do we make that available to the smaller players, to the micro businesses, to the smaller businesses? It's completely untapped. It's completely, left out in this complex digital transformation. So one thing we like to do is to really look at the transition we are going through. And we observe that every day in our life, but how do we activate that? How do we make it happen, So the transformation we want to enable here is to really, transform the way we are interacting at different levels. Voice has been and still a very super important channel. When it comes to real-time communication, when it comes to emergency conversation or critical conversation, if I can say yes, you're going to still have voice around. It's not going to go and disappear. But we see an evolution from voice to messaging, from voice to messaging in different formats. From typing, and if you're like me, I'm a pretty bad typer, so people prefer tap, people prefer, the touch of the screen, the shortcuts, the chatbots, automation that you can provide. So that evolution is important when you really create and go through that transformation. The real challenge we see, and we are launching different campaigns with our customers, some of them will be here today virtually and physically, but what we see as a challenge is really, a lot of the stuff we are doing as an industry is just to take the old stuff, like SMS, and then trying to make it on the Omnichannel. And it's okay, but it's not great. And we need to really rethink the way, we interact with our customers. And don't take the easy path, because it's always, it feels, like it's okay to do that, but it's actually not helping, our industry if we just go and create a Me Too kind of a approach from SMS to RCS. Now, phones have been around, and you have old phones in your hands or on your desk. They're not going to go away. But on your phone now, you have more, of course. You have apps that are, omni-channel apps, multi-lines, multi-identity, multi-devices. So one phone can be more than just you. It can be you and your business. It can be you and your social activities, soccer, football, whatever, on the same device. I think we're not keeping that in mind enough, that the phones have allowed us to create multiple identity by different means, and obviously one of the biggest identity in our world is a phone number. If you look around you, if you look around any advertisements, a lot of the businesses still advertise themselves with a number, with a phone number. And I think there's a good presentation coming up on that. One thing I'm very sensible is the complexity of this stuff. When you ask people to onboard, when you ask people to get on, we have not done a good job. We have really a lot of work to do here to really create an onboarding experience that feels natural. It should not be like, signing a legal contract with your lawyer, for whatever. Big stuff. We should be able to onboard on these communications, on this journey, much easier. In an easier way, sorry. So self-services, low-touch activation, things that should be really natural. If you think about it, there is a lot of work to be done here. And I say that for all of us, and I know carriers and some of us here are regulated. We have to be careful about what we do. But still, there is a better way to make it happen. And then, the constellation or the spectrum of services around us today are still disjointed. The phone lines is not connected to your messaging, is not connecting to your emails, is not connecting to a lot of the different services you're using. And so we have to do a better job here in that journey, to integrate these services together and make sure, they work and complement each other. So, I mean, Mavenir is well known to be a big technology shop. You know, our CEO that you just met, Pardeep Kohli, is our chief engineer, you know, officer. We call it the CEO, but it's really a chief engineer. And yes, technology is big. It's super important. It's super complex. But we have to go beyond that. And we cannot do it alone. I mean, we belong. We are now part of an ecosystem. It's pretty new, actually, to be part of an ecosystem for many of us. When you think about it, 25 years ago, SMS was really a network service. It was entirely controlled, and it's still controlled by the carrier. Today, you move fast forward, a lot of the messaging application belongs to the OS vendors or belongs to people that are not even close to the telco world. So really, you know, this is more than just technology. So being able to deliver, you know, these capabilities in different ways, and we believe SaaS, software as a service, is one way, and probably the most efficient way to deliver that value, especially when you understand the complexity of our customers. The business operation is something that is always underestimated, especially when you come from a technology standpoint. We see a lot of our customers, you know, struggling, not having enough people, not having enough knowledgeable people about the channels. How do we support brand onboarding? How do we support, you know, customer journeys, touch points, and all that stuff? So really being able to support our customers around business operations is going to be critical, and more than just, you know, having a technology or a bunch of APIs. It's going to come to, as well, professional services. And where we see a lot of demand right now, especially in this area, is marketing as a service. How do we help? And I will come back on that, because one of the things that we see today in our industry is the lack of knowledge of the brands and enterprise. They have no idea. They have no idea what I'm talking about right now. I mean, if they were here, they would be like, what is he talking about, you know? Because I'm not talking as a marketing person to them. I'm not talking about, you know, their customers. I'm not talking about their engagements, their touch points, their, you know, analytics. So marketing as a service, go-to-market assistance, how do we help them to better understand that? And our carriers, customers, but not just the carriers, but anybody who wants to better engage with their final customer, the brands, is going to be super critical. And then I mentioned earlier, we cannot do it alone. I mean, this is an ecosystem play. In the ecosystem, everybody play a role. And that's the way the ecosystem work and thrive, you know. So a lot of our partners are here today. I saw a lot of them, and I'm pleased they are coming in here. But even the ecosystem, you know, around the massive and the massive or hyper, you know, messaging play. Google with Google Chat and Google RCS, Apple with Apple Messages for Business, obviously, and then Meta with WhatsApp and, of course, Facebook Messenger. I cannot name all the partners we have here. We have like more than 72. They are not all here on the slide, but they play a critical role in bringing this thing together. So that sounds very good, but I want to share with you, and especially in light of the transition to the rest of the agenda and the 2 days, key learning, because we got the technology, we got the ecosystem, we got the big brands like Google, Apple, you know, these guys are really enabling us. But I see what is missing is still a lot of questions that are not resolved. When you make a transition as a brand from one channel to another channel, the first question they ask you is about security. They're going to position, you know, this channel to carry some very, very private information. I mean, was SMS secure? We can debate for hours on that. But they believe it is, so let them believe, okay? At the same time, you know, you transition to a new channel. Is it secure as it is before? We have to address this concern. And these concerns are very important because they are slowing us down into the adoption of omnichannels. Education, I mentioned that. That's probably where we need to spend a lot of time. You know, the brands are willing to spend money. They have budgets to explore. They have marketing, you know, trial budget that they can use to explore the technology. But we really have to make it simple to consume. We cannot come and be, you know, technically savvy but completely unaware of what they're trying to do. So educating them, but also educating us to better understand the fit in that market and transition. Identity is also a big concern. It's related to security, but it's a little bit different than security. How do you manage the identity, especially when you see all the fraud and the scams around, the technology today? And these are very, very complex topics, that you need to be aware. Pricing, my gosh, I feel like I'm repeating myself, Yeah, it's been a long time since I've been on stage, but the slide is almost the same like 2 years ago. So that's a concern. Our pricing sucks, it's too complex, excuse my French. But it's really, something that we need to be able to clarify to the brands a pricing model that works, that scale, that address their needs, and really make that clear. The transition from SMS to omnichannel, if you look at the technology side, it seems like, it's doable. But what we see is that there is a lot of resistance to transition. There is a lot of pushback to transition. And also, the pandemic era, slowed down a lot of this transition. We were on a path to transition faster. And, the brands say, SMS is good enough. Why should I change, And of course, we're going to come to the AI and the chatbots and all the things that will be fancy in the future, to do and perform. But it's still at the very beginning. Some of these AI chatbot experiences are actually not good. They actually force, the user to ask for a human in the loop, So we need to do a better job as an industry, and I'm sure we'll have people touching on that. So if we can focus on this, over the next, few years ahead of us, we can definitively help our ecosystem, our industry to better strive in this omnichannel play. Thank you. So I know there is a...
Hi, well, thank you very much, Guillaume.
Yeah.
It was a great intro because we're going to be talking about all of those identity questions, security questions, and so on through the rest of the day. So, do we have any questions from the floor? We've got a microphone, and if there are any questions, can you say your name and your company? And also, while we're waiting for that, I should just remind the virtual audience that they can ask questions at any time. And I've got this iPad, so throughout the day, I'm going to be able to check the questions and relay them to the speakers. But I'm just going to ask one quick question, actually, Guillaume, before we let you leave. So you talked about the fact that the brands have got no idea what you're talking about, which wasn't a great advert for the business so far. I mean, it's a big question, but what can be done to educate brands to this massive opportunity that you've just described?
Well, I think, it goes down and boils down to education, spending more time with the marketing folks, the brand, the customer services guys, the marketing platforms guys. I mean, I was talking to actually a carrier as a brand themselves, not the carrier as a delivery channel, but a carrier as a brand. And believe it or not, in that same company, they are doing RCS and they're delivering RCS. And then we talk to their marketing folks and they have no idea what we were talking about. So imagine if it's happening inside the carrier themselves, imagine what is going on outside. And so we started to explain to them, what is available to them as a brand, carriers are have very strong brands, when it comes to engaging with the market. So education is one of them, showing the benefits, removing, the concern around security and identity, the trust issue. Yes, we know that the channel are end-to-end encrypted, but there is more than just that story. There is all the metadata, all the activities of the users. So there is a lot of work to be done, and that's probably where we need to focus more time. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Guillaume. Once again, have a hand for Guillaume. Thank you. Once again, thanks for sponsoring the show.